So, any CODEC moments from you, Snake?
Hello everyone, welcome to Season 2, Episode 2 of CODEC Moments. I'm Ephraim Scufflegrit, joined here once again with Flash Medallion. Flash, how you doing?
I'm very good, Scuff. How are you?
Pretty good. Just got off a pretty long shift, made some money, had some shitty people. One of them called me stupid. That was fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, customer service.
Oh yeah, going back to the life of the restaurant industry, which is actually quite entertaining. Like anyone who's never worked in a restaurant, I'd recommend it if only for the stories.
Yeah, it's worth a short burst. I worked in a nightclub slash restaurant slash bar for like 4 years, and I pretty much ticked off every possible position there was to do. Yeah, it has its moments. I was glad to get out.
Yeah, I was glad to get out. Now I'm back in. I've kind of gotten past the point of not talking back though, which is also really entertaining. Like I had a guy tonight who was like, he asked how much longer the food was going to be. I said about 5 minutes, and then 2 minutes later I walked by. He asked how long. I was like, well, still about 5 minutes. Well, that's what you said 20 minutes ago, and I was just straight up like, no, I didn't.
What are you, stupid?
Yeah, that was literally the next line. So, are you stupid? Like, no, I'm not, sir. I'll be off now. But yeah, as I understand, you just got back from a small trip. How'd that go?
Oh, it was nice. It was a very small trip. We just flew down to the capital for about 5 days. So it was my first wedding anniversary, and one of my groomsmen was getting married the day after the anniversary. So we just decided to call it a good excuse for a holiday, and it was nice. It was lovely. I love Wellington, New Zealand. It's a nice city, and I caught up with a lot of good friends, most who I haven't seen for quite a while. So it's good to fit all that in. And just meet up, just have a drink, take me to your favourite watering hole, or take me to your favourite lunch place, and we managed to check out a whole bunch of good food and good drinks. And the museum, there's a really good museum there in the capital. There's some cool exhibits there. So yeah, can't complain. I've had a nice week. I've also been completely lazy, and I forgot last week's mess hall for like the first time ever, and then I was away for it this time. So fortunately, Waylander took care of it.
Yeah, right on. And, congratulations on the anniversary.
Oh, thank you. And I haven't touched the last week's CODEC Moments. I haven't even looked at it yet, so I will get onto that tonight. I just turned down an offer to go drinking so that I could stay at home and finish CODEC Moments and get it all up for you guys. So that's how great I am.
Yeah, thanks very much for that.
That's all right. So this week we are going to dip our toes into more story, possibly plot stuff about metalgearsolid 5 Fan Pain. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. Be mindful if there are spoilers ahead, so if you haven't finished the game yet, you might want to wait until you get to the ending before you continue here. I don't know if we'll be touching on specifically the ending quite yet in this episode, but it's definitely big enough to where you might want to stay away for now.
Yeah, as mentioned last week, I think it's probably good that we ended up waiting quite a while before coming back to the show, because we can just get stuck in now. If you haven't played the game, stop listening. But I think there's enough people out there who would have finished by now and are happy to listen to two people rag on about it. So we might not get all the way to cover everything, so we just thought we'd throw some topics around about the game and start talking about how it's all working.
Definitely, and now that we've covered that, let's jump right into it.
Yeah, let's go. So I thought a good place to start would be with the marketing of the game, because what we were conditioned to think that we would get is a very different game to the game we got in some respects. In many respects it was true but misleading, and in other ways it just wasn't what we hyped ourselves up into wanting, which I thought was cool. And to be fair, you know what, in hindsight I'm surprised I didn't call it or see it coming on some level. Like, we were all having so much fun going, oh yeah, and this is going to go to Africa, and Grey Fox will be there, and all these people will be here. And it's so obvious, and it'll be so cool, and it's so perfect. And I can't think of a single point where at least one person didn't go, well, hang on a minute, isn't this a little too easy? Isn't this a little too obvious? So even very skeptical fans or people who didn't really like, Floral Cunt accused me once, I use that term loosely, accused me of being very rational and reserved and never really coming down on either side of something. And I think people with that approach also got hit pretty hard by the game, because we were like, oh, it wouldn't be a body double, and it wouldn't be this, and they wouldn't do that trick twice, or they wouldn't give it away like that. And some of the like total in-game material was right there in the very first trailer with the Not Your Kind of People.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think we were both kind of like on the same side of that, because I mean, even on the previous season of CODEC Moments, we were both kind of ragging on that idea, like, oh, here's another post about it being a body double, blah, 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 blah. But then, I mean, you're right, there was so much of it in front of us, and I remember even commenting a couple times in the subreddit that like I said a couple times myself, like, oh, that's so obvious at this point. Like, oh, yeah, the lyrics say this, and oh yeah, the cause say, and what about him? Like, it's just so obvious that there's no way that they would do it. It's right in front of your face, and I mean, truth be told, looking back, it really was right in front of our face.
Yeah, and I'm with you, and I'll totally wear that. I just sat there the whole time going, nah, that's so obvious. It wouldn't be like that, and you guys are all dumb. And yeah, so I got a nice little serving of crow to eat on that front.
Same here, and I think like right during the intro, when it gets you like customizing the face and everything, and then like it didn't really look like the facial surgery happened. Like even right there at the beginning, I was like, oh, you've got to be shitting me.
Yeah, that was interesting. So I'd heard, we'd bandied rumours about, and heard them. I think one magazine or some reviewer talked about the face customization, and then it got taken down by Konami really quickly. So that idea was always in the back of everyone's head. I mean, I went into the game expecting face customization, but for it to be something like for our MGO avatar or for our FOB invader or something like that. So then it popped up, and then you know, oh well, better get the surgery ready, and the doctor gets killed. I was like, huh. Cool. That was funny. It's an incredibly elaborate fake out, but it wasn't.
I know, like about 3/4 of the way in, I know I had it spoiled for me. I know you didn't have it spoiled for you, but you had gotten to the end of the game before I did, and I had asked you, did you see it coming? And you told me what your guess was before you got there, and of course turned out to be true. Was there a point that you got to in the game where it really kind of started to fall together for you?
Well, no, it never came together for me because I was in this crazy level of a little bit of denial, a little bit of forceful denial, a little bit of, I guess, let's go there and say a little bit of doublethink. But having moderated the subreddit all the way up to launch, the deep dark secret here is none of us really got spoiled. We'd set up a really, really complex system of moderation where a lot of the mods didn't actually get that much spoiled, but I certainly never once came across a definitive "this is the twist" or anything along those lines. But that being said, the metalgearsolid community was just packed full of wankers, and we've had this discussion before with people who go, "Oh, I guess it's just Big Boss, or is it?" And people trying to be all sly and clever about the ending. And when there's like a massive population of people who are all doing that, it kind of starts to build up a bit of a picture. So I was pretty much on board, or begrudgingly at some level I knew that Medic was this Venom Snake character. But at the same time, I think I don't know if I sent it to someone or not. I said this is clearly Big Boss. This guy we're playing as is clearly Big Boss. And the only way any of this would make any sense is like something as absurdly stupid as a memory transplant. So when I saw stuff like coming up to the AI pod and then like the DNA test with Eli, you could say that kind of started confirming it for me, which was an interesting experience, having that stuff the first time as opposed to going back and finding it in hindsight. But it never really clicked because the whole time I was like, this still doesn't make any sense because this guy is the Big Boss that we know. He's the same character, it's his memories, he behaves pretty much the same. So no, it never fell together, and so I still got a really cool experience when I opened up that truth mission.
Definitely, and I even though I did have it spoiled for me, I was only about 3/4 of the way through, so I'd gotten through a lot of it. I knew it by the Eli test, and like someone in real life spoiled it for me, and then I got 2 PMs on the subreddit. I'm assuming either because of my cavalier attitude towards shutting people down about the body double theory, or because of Throwback Theory Thursday, they just felt like they had to spoil it for me. Fuck you, whoever that was, if you're listening. But regardless, I had kind of started to, because I was trying to talk myself out of it like the whole way. I was like, there's no way there's a body double. But I think the moment for me was that the AI pod, like you brought up, and not only just because the AI pod scans Snake and then you can hear the boss's voice say, oh, it's not you, is it? And then that kind of started to make me kind of wonder, but then it was just like how much he didn't give a single shit that the AI pod was there. I mean, like through all of Peace Walker, he's obsessed with it and like, oh my god, it's the ghost of the boss. And at the end of Peace Walker, Strangelove explains like, no, it's like really like the boss's will, like she's stopping war, she just wants to sing, she's laying down her gun, which of course leads to the moment that Big Boss takes off the bandana and throws it into the ocean and says, fuck that bitch. But like,
Yeah.
just to see her in Phantom Pain, Huey's like, "Oh, it's just a machine," and then Venom's just basically like, "Oh, okay. Well, anyways, we're moving
So-
now. Like, there's the ghost
So
of my
that was
mentor."
the thing for you. You just so you feel like he wasn't acting like Big Boss, and then that's because I'd take a different stance on that. But that's an interesting way to look at it.
It was just odd for me that he just seemed like so nonchalant about the boss being once again resurrected.
Yeah, but he's also nonchalant about practically every single thing in this game. I've always seen that stuff. A lot of people take his different behaviour as being indicative that he's different from Big Boss, but I don't think that's necessarily true because Big Boss in Ground Zeroes is pretty similar, even though we get less of a chance to see it.
That's true, and in the Take-Two is definitely more talkative, which he is in Phantom Pain, but even so, like, it was just, like, I didn't necessarily mind it throughout the game either, because I get that part of the point was that, I mean, not only is he not Big Boss, but I mean, more the fact that he is the player, and but his emotions are the players.
Yeah, there's that. I also think it's just a stylistic choice, and that's it. And I can see why a lot of people don't like it because we've had 4 or 5 really full-length games with a very different style, and now in this game he's going very much along the lines of like Drive or something a little more expressive. People go, "Oh, it's not my Big Boss, it's not Big Boss I know," which is true, but it didn't bug me that much. I don't see it as it representing a different character. It's just a matter of style. It's all it is. In my head, everybody has to believe that. But so that's why it never really got to me, and I've never really considered his actions being different. That's a lie too, because he wears a ponytail, and Big Boss doesn't, and he never smokes. He hardly ever smokes, except for like he gets a cigarette on his birthday from everyone who goes, "Hey, yeah, Big Boss likes cigarettes," but Venom just sits there and has his Venom cigar, and that's it. Meanwhile, like the very first thing Big Boss does when he wakes up is like breaks out of hospital and has a smoke, and then Ocelot gives him another smoke again when he leaves. So I don't know. Maybe there's little things going on there. I see it so much more as a style decision than any kind of character decision.
I can see that, and that was hilarious to me, by the way, when you're listening to the Truth tapes, and Ocelot's like, "What are you doing out here?" It's like, "Dude, I'm going to sleep for 9 years. I need some friggin' nicotine."
Yeah, well, which also makes no sense. Like, it's been 9 years. You've got that out of your system. But, just to jump back on something, we're talking about the moment that gave it away, the oh shit moment. I think Prati nailed it. It's when the credits start up in the trauma room thing, when they're reviving him, DP's dropping, intubate, and they don't intubate. And then the credits start up, it says starring Big Boss, and I was like, oh no. Oh no! Yeah, that was the moment, which was very cool because they take that thing that's been happening the whole game. Again, it's another real Kojima thing. This credits sequence has been happening the whole game, and you just get used to it. You get acclimatized to it, and then all it takes is one little twist on that right at the end to completely blow everything wide open just by putting Big Boss in the credits. I thought it was really, really nicely done.
I actually did not notice that because ever since the skulls, like the first time I saw the skulls like pop up in the intro credits, I was like, well, I'm never watching those again. Really?
I loved it. I thought it was really neat because if you think about how modern TV works, like I don't know who follows Game of Thrones or how in depth you follow it. This is the example I'm going to pick. I can't hang around the subreddits while the show's on because it's just an interesting place. And then you see posts about, well, here's the cast list for the next episode, like John's in it and some other guy's in it, and some dude from 3 seasons ago is in it. So it's kind of part of consuming TV now is knowing who's been cast in upcoming episodes and trying to guess around what's happening. So I thought it was kind of cool and very contemporary to have those, what most people would consider spoilers, in your little casting list at the start of a mission. I thought it was really fun, and especially when you get stuff like, oh, here comes the Skulls unit, and then you forget about it in the middle of a mission. Like, it's a bit war economy when you've got to... No, that's not it. It's the one with the truck.
Oh,
you've got a really hard mission. Like, I screwed that up so many times before I even got close to the damn truck. Like, I'd completely forgotten about the bloody credits at that point. And I'm like, finally, I've stopped this convoy in time, and I've dealt to the tanks, and I'm like, all right, get to this truck. And then the Skulls jumped out. It was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And maybe it's just me because I'd forgotten all about the credit sequence like 2 hours prior to that. So I'm a very big fan of those credits and how they finally used that in the final mission to just drop one on you the same way Metal Gear Solid 4 did with the fake fake ending credits.
I get it's a cool stylistic choice, especially with like leading up to the game. Kojima was talking about how he views the Phantom Pain as kind of like a TV episodic kind of thing, and it wasn't like I didn't mind seeing the skulls necessarily. What really pushed me over was on Where Do the Bees Live, or whatever the mission was called, and it says like Skullface and Sahelanthropus. So like, oh well, I guess like the big reveal is coming up. Cool, but you brought up other TV shows and Game of Thrones with the cast list and stuff. I always like try to avoid spoilers really hard, and I think my favorite show, Mad Men, was always hilarious how they did because I mean AMC makes them do a like coming on the next episode, and like the way Matt Weiner put the little upcoming episode thing was hilarious. Like he would just show just random characters, like it would show Dawn saying like I want a hamburger, and then like it would move on to Roger Sterling like like it was just like random stuff, like I want a hamburger, I want a cigarette, and like that's the kind of stuff that I personally prefer. I don't necessarily think it was a mistake putting the little intro credit thing in the episode, but it was more just for me personally. I didn't want things like Sahelanthropus and Skullface and stuff spoiled for me. I mean, that's just me. I do respect what it did for sure.
Yeah, I've always had the opinion that if the author wants you to know it, then it's not a spoiler. Like, I don't really know how other to explain that other than exactly what I just said. Like, if the person who's in charge of this narrative or this emotional roller coaster wants you to know something's coming, then that's what you're supposed to know. It's fine. I never fired a mission and went, oh no, now I know that Skullface is in it. You kind of always get a hint. Like, Where Do the Bees Sleep? It kind of plays back into the game design too, because it's a long mission, especially the first time you do it. You're like, it's a trek. It's a really big trek, and you finally get there, and not only do you keep running past guard posts and having to cross the dam and then get all your way in, and then it's a pretty significant outpost for that level of the game. And you've got to get all the way past that, all the way into the cave, and then you have to continue going all the way in, and then find this goddamn thing, which is buried in the middle of nowhere. So if I hadn't have known that Skullface was coming up, and I only had an hour to go, and then Skullface showed up, and then I had a boss battle, I would have maybe gone, shit, I don't have time for this, or something.
Yeah, that's maybe. True. And I get that it, starring the Skullface unit, I know, like, the few times that I did see it, like, as soon as I landed, I was like, all right, iDroid, supply drop. Dismiss D-Dog, call in D-Walker.
Yeah, right.
Which, by the way, thank you again for that, Proddy.
Yeah, see, I still don't use D-Walker that much, and when I do bring it, I mostly use D-Walker if I'm going to, like, sweep through Africa and do, like, 6 side ops that I need to do. So I'll bring D-Walker for, like, the speed and everything else, and just, like, smash my way through Africa for a while. But otherwise, I can't even remember the last time I took it on a mission seriously, like, thinking, okay, I really need D-Walker here. I do.
I pretty much exclusively use him to deal with the skulls. Like, the only reason I knew that it was the Trader's Caravan episode that you were talking about is because I just did the all objectives and S rank on it today, and definitely had to do that a few times just to get the damn conversations.
Oh shit, I still haven't gone back to that. I did, before I went to bed last night, I did one of the conversations, which was cool though, because they're often very good. This was the one in Voices. You follow this poor schmuck who's been assigned to guard the tunnel to Skullface's little lab where he's testing all the viruses on that kid.
Yeah.
Shabani, whatever. If you want to get that objective, the mission is a completely different mission where you just have to tail this poor bastard who's like, oh yeah, you've been assigned to this, like, the devil's house. And he's like, the hell is that? Isn't that where it's like, the last guy went missing? Like, yeah, the last guy went missing, so there's your truck. And you follow him to the next guard post, and he's like, where do I go? And they're like, there's some intel in the tent, which you can go and scan as well. And he goes and gets his intel. And, oh, no, and then he's like, oh, did you hear there was a guard went missing? The guy's like, don't be stupid. So he's like, all right, off I go. And then he gets to the next place, and there's like a fence in the way, and the guard's like, oh, yeah, I hear it's pretty dangerous out there, so there's a lot of mist. That's the other great thing about that mission. Like, you used to like skulls showing up every time there's mist. And then Ocelot's like, yeah, that whole valley is covered in mist all year round. And you're like, oh my god, what am I getting into? And you follow this poor bastard all the way through, and he gets up to the top. There's another guy there, he's like, yeah, this is the place you're here to guard. Like, well, whatever you do, don't go down that tunnel. Don't go through the tunnel. Because the last guy, well, we told him not to go through the tunnel, but he went through the tunnel, and he never came back. Oh no, he did come back. He showed up, and then a weird unit came out of nowhere, and like, in helicopters, and torched his vehicle and set him on fire and killed everybody. So don't go through the tunnel. And then I was like, right, boss, your objective's through that tunnel. So it gives you a really different way of playing that mission, which is cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I did see a thing on chat, if you want to go into this at all, asking what we thought about if the game was complete or not, or the story was complete or not.
Do I want to go into that? I
It's
don't
going
think
to
I can
come up
cover.
eventually, either way.
It is. It is. I don't think I can cover the whole thing. So maybe we can just touch back on it as it becomes relevant. Yes, I think the game we were given is a game that was intended to be made, and I think a lot of people saying incomplete comes from the way they are looking at the narrative and what they want out of the narrative. And you're always going to run into that trouble if you go into something saying, well, here's what I wanted and here's what I expected, and maybe here's what I am right to expect or I'm entitled to expect, which is fine. And when you don't get that, it makes it much harder to take a step back and then re-look at it for what it is or what it may be. I mean, I hate to belabor the comparison, but I mean, look at Metal Gear Solid 2. That's the world's most fucked up sequel. It has nothing to do with anything. Like, it takes everything about Metal Gear Solid and throws it out the window.
It's true. That's completely true. And the only thing that kind of makes me feel or give pause was like the repeat missions in Chapter 2. As far as the actual story goes, I mean, everyone's up in arms about like, the whole leaving Eli unfinished. And like, yes, while that story was unfinished, like that particular plot line, I mean, it was just one mission.
But there's a difference between plot and story, or plot and theme. Like, Eli's character was resolved for the purpose that it served in the game. His whole story wasn't resolved. Yeah, so we don't find out every little detail about what he gets up to next and what happens with all this other stuff. But in terms of his role in the game, he's absolutely resolved. And the point of his story and his relationship with Venom Snake and where that guides him and where that launches him off in the direction of his life, that's completely set up. It's fine. And, I mean, for my money, that cut episode actually kind of ruins it a little bit. Ruins what the game had done with his character.
I agree with you on that for the most part. Because, I mean, Eli was, like, you see his hate for Big Boss. You see why he is as an adult. Like, why he hates him so much and so on and so forth.
Yeah, you see where it comes from. Like, it's a tough sell. You've got to... So this game's being more naturalistic, blah, 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 blah. So you've got to come up with, A, child character, like the worst thing ever, and B, come up with a child character that believably explains the complete nutbar that is Liquid Snake in Metal Gear Solid 1. They had a really hard job ahead of them, and they did a really good job of it, I think. And I think they rode the line really well of not overstepping their bounds of characterizing Eli, because as soon as you go too far, the more you do, the more Eli there was in the game, the more opportunities there was for someone in the audience to go, well, hang on, that's not really what Liquid Snake would do, well, that doesn't match up. So they kept it minimal, and we just got this really cool story of this kid who, well, for a start, escaped Cypher, something that not even Big Boss could do. Like, he got free, busted out, went off to Africa, and no one could find him. He basically built his own little mini out of heaven, if you think about it. No rules, no higher authority. He got a bunch of kids, started his own little unit, and they lived on their own terms. And that was all well and good, and he did it by his own merits and by his own talents. And then Venom Snake just strolls, and I literally mean strolls, it's one of the easiest missions in the game, even at that late stage, strolls in, like just puts down all his soldiers non-lethally, like just punches them over and shoots them with rubber bullets, and then basically just wanders into his little throne room and grabs him by the heel and drags him home. Like, Venom completely undermines everything that Eli has done, and then to add insult to injury, drags him back and says, you're part of my unit now and you do what I say, and fuck everything you've worked for. So you can see why someone like Liquid Snake would be so pissed off that Solid Snake took away his opportunity to not only one-up Big Boss, but shove it in his face.
Definitely, and I think that you hit the nail on the head with they didn't overstep their bounds on characterizing, young Liquid Snake, and it does do all of that perfectly. I got as much development and story out of Eli as I was hoping for. Like, that was one of the things that I got exactly what I wanted with the story was Eli. The only issue that I had with the arguably unresolved plot was the fact that Sahelanthropus and the virus escaped with him. Not because, like, oh, I need to know what happens, or, like, I need to know, like, what the director wanted, like, what the storyline was going to be. It just left too many questions for me. It's like, well, why does he need Metal Gear Rex later, and why didn't he use that to go attack the Patriots? Because he obviously knew of, Cypher and all that, because he escaped from them and knew he was a clone, and probably knew that Solid Snake was his twin.
Maybe. Yeah, I guess he would have. I don't think he had to know about them, but that's probably a reasonable assumption. I find it interesting that even at a very young age, he knew that he was Big Boss's son, which is a cool little thing. Like, in my little little game that I would make, my Metal Gear Liquid, I'd have him find out, like in Gulf War or something like that, that he's Big Boss's clone. But they just go throw it in here now. And the cool thing is they don't even make it a big deal. It's not a reveal. It's something that he knows. And then it's also something that Venom already knows. That's another really cool thing that I liked about it. People, I guess it's another one of those things that make people go, oh, this is so unfinished and doesn't make sense. But I love how it's just casually brought up in the game, like between Ocelot and Venom, that Eli is his son. And then he's got these two sons out there. And everyone's been waiting for ages to find out the truth about, oh, when did Big Boss find out and all this stuff. And we seem to have missed it or whatever. And it never happens on stage. So I guess I can understand some of the complaint, but this game just goes, yeah, well, you're an intelligent audience, you know what's going on. So they just cut to the chase and have Ocelot going, yeah, well, so like your son's running around out here somewhere, and he knows that you're his father, and let's just get on with it. Which I can see why it's not popular with everybody, but I appreciate not being pandered to or treated like an idiot when I'm playing a game or watching a movie.
I mean, I was kind of hoping for the reveal to be on stage. I'm absolutely fine and love what we got, like, as an alternative. Like, that's not my problem. I am curious to hear what you think about Sahelanthropus and the virus escaping with him, though, because, I mean, to me, that felt absolutely incredibly unresolved only because of how many questions. Because, I mean, what's the point of Metal Gear TX55 if there's a clone of Big Boss out there with, a walking upright Sahelanthropus and a virus that can wipe out anyone that speaks English?
Yeah, so those are two separate questions. As for the Sahelanthropus, wasn't it wrecked?
Only partially, I think. Like, didn't Huey say he was gonna? Like, I could be totally wrong here, but wasn't Huey working on it? Because I mean, it works enough like for Eli to escape. Because I mean, he uses it to crash through the wall via Mantis and like escape the little interrogation room he was in. Like, it was operational enough to do that.
Yeah, I suppose so. I mean, my question is, okay, well, it's functional. Let's just say it's functional. We've got this like pretty heavily damaged Metal Gear that can only be operated by a child and apparently a psychic, which clearly requires incredible amounts of support, right? Like, it's got Diamond Dogs working on it, Huey working on it, the Soviets working on it. What the hell kind of threat is that sitting in the middle of the jungle where no one knows where it is my question. Like, these things require fuel to operate and electricity and logistics and support and maintenance. Like, to me, that it never really bugged me at all.
It would still be out there, though, because, I mean, like, it would still be a thing, and at least, I mean, like, you could
yes.
like, pretty royally fuck up a city with it, at least.
Could you? That's what I'm wondering.
I think so. I mean, with it being able to escape, like, the way that he escaped Mother Base, I feel like it was, fairly operational with, because Eli grins, like, he knows exactly what's about to happen when it, comes crashing through the wall.
Yeah, I suppose so. But yeah, to me, at least my first reaction, maybe it needs a bit more reconsidering, was that, like, they've just got this busted up Metal Gear that they can't do anything with, and they're in the middle of the jungle, and nobody knows where it is. Essentially, it's no threat. So it didn't bug me. In fact, to me, the supposed ending of this episode 51, where either Diamond Dogs or Cypher recover it, somebody does, that makes far more questions to me, like, what happened to the research now if it's back in the hands of someone who knows what to do with it, compared to, you can see why we went to TX55 and Rex, because Sahelanthropus has vanished and it's rotting in a jungle somewhere and nobody knows where it is. I reckon it was Diamond Dogs who got it. We'll see. So yeah, it makes more sense to me that it just got left in the jungle and then that was it. It disappeared and the tech disappeared and end of story. Whereas if episode 51 happens and suddenly it's back in the hands of one of these PFs or whatever, and then you get even bigger trouble explaining why Metal Gears became so shitty afterwards.
Speaking of which, I liked Sahelanthropus in the game, but it also kind of like cheapened the rest of the Metal Gears for me, because I mean, Rex has always been my favorite Metal Gear ever since Metal Gear Solid 1 came out, but he almost feels like kind of puny now compared to Sahelanthropus, because I mean, look at it. It starts out as basically Rex, and then it transforms into the Megazord Metal Gear.
Yeah, it's hard to draw a line on that. Again, if it disappeared off the face of the Earth, if there's no Chapter 51, then that makes sense, I guess. But you're right that it diminishes the other Rexes, but at the same time, I would rather that happen, and I'd rather have all the other Metal Gears being slightly shittier and not making sense. Because I'm going to air quote this is the last Metal Gear Solid. It's Fox Engine, this massive, open, amazing combat system. How can you not go nuts with that and create the sweetest Metal Gear fight that there's ever been, which they did?
And that's very true. And speaking of it being the Fox engine, you want to show off all these things. Phantom Pain, like not just the narrative, but like the game itself. I mean, you can do everything, but in like a more of a strictly like mechanics and physics kind of way. Phantom Pain felt to me like it was like a good starting point for something. Like it was a good like something to build off of for like another game. Like I don't mean like another Silent Hills. I mean more Metal Gear Solid, which I'm not necessarily wanting, because I mean the story's been finished like a few times now, where like it was at a good stopping point, and Phantom Pain really does with the narrative breach the gap. Like there's a lot of people complaining like, oh, it doesn't breach the gap perfectly, blah 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 blah. But I mean,
it doesn't narrate.
Do what?
It doesn't narrate the gap. It doesn't sit down and go, here's the story of how the Big Boss saga joined up to the Metal Gear Solid Snake saga. Like, it doesn't narrate the difference, but I think it joins them in a really interesting way.
Especially with the reveal, and then like it turns out to be Venom at the end of Metal Gear, yeah, right, at the end of Metal Gear, and that's who it actually was. And because I mean, like Metal Gear Solid has always had kind of a way of not having a lot of that on screen. Like we get a lot of like the events, and we catch up through codecs and tape conversations and radio and what have you. But as far as the gameplay goes, it felt to me like it was like okay, now the engine's built. We spent all these years building the engine, and this is like we only had a couple of years to do the game after that. And
I don't buy that.
No?
No. I guess to get back to your original question, which I didn't want to answer, do I think the game is incomplete? My impression is that this episode 51 it's not quote marks cut content, it's edited out. It's a deleted scene, and you delete scenes for a reason. Every creative medium has what would be called deleted scenes, You go through music, you go through albums, you go through movies, you go through TV shows, you go through just about everything. Even like visual art, static art, and you do drafts and you do extra versions, and you go, oh, does this really need this tree here in the corner, or is that kind of ruining the balance of this image, or whatever? So yeah, I don't really see the assumption. Well, I do know where the assumption comes from, but I don't agree with the assumption that because it's not there, or because they got partway through making it, that therefore it's, air quotes, supposed to be there, and then it got left out because it was shit or not finished or whatever. I think they got to a certain point, judging by the animatics, 30% in, they just made the scenes and they hadn't even finished really rendering them, and then they decided, oh, you know what, this actually isn't servicing the game, so we're going to take it out.
And I agree with you on that, because I mean, like, I'm sure I'll catch hate for this statement, but I think that if it really was just one more mission they had to do, and Kojima was like, hey, we need like another week or two, then like a week or two would have been like fine, like to complete the game if it's just one more mission.
Depends. If they'd already announced a release date, then there's no way in hell they'd budge on it. But at the same time, look how far ahead of time they announced a release date, and look how polished everything was months before then. Like, we've got Kojima sitting there just browsing through the game, showing all his chopper photos of him just looking for bugs. Like, if there was one more little mission to chuck in there, they would have been on top of that shit.
I think so too, because I mean, one more mission would have made a difference. To answer my own question, I think the game is more or less complete. Like, there might have been like some minor stuff cut out, like here and there, but I don't think it's anything to be actually like offended by or anything. I do feel like it did feel like almost like the beginning of a trilogy, though. A lot of Phantom Pain felt to me like this doesn't have anything to do with the story whatsoever. I just mean the overall game itself. It felt to me a lot like Assassin's Creed 1. Not that it was repetitive or anything, but it was like the start of something brilliant. Like, they could have branched off in like so many different directions after this game. And not to say that it's incomplete by any means, or that the story felt like Assassin's Creed 1 did, or the pacing or anything was like that. But I did feel like it felt overall like the beginning of something.
Okay. It took me a while to get my head around the sky. I do see what you mean, because when I got to the end and got to the thing, I was like, it kind of didn't go as far, and it also went further than I expected. It's a strange one. Considering the bulk of the game is basically, well, Chapter 1. That's the game, as far as I'm concerned.
Exactly. I think Chapter 2 serves as like an excellent epilogue, But like, I think you're kind of getting what I'm saying now, that like they could have, like, Phantom Pain was complete, but it still felt like it was like the beginning of what a trilogy could have been.
Yeah, no, because that would have been Peace Walker.
True, to a certain extent, I believe. I mean more with like the engine, like what they came out with their first game of the engine for a Metal Gear Solid game, like because a lot of it is like they did the physics, and then like it felt like they did the physics, and they built the objectives and stuff around it, and like all the stuff you can do. But I think if there happened to be two more games, like it would have built off that, and then we would have maybe gotten like something more tuned to like what could have been.
Maybe. It's just because what you're talking about now, and especially because you link that to Assassin's Creed, like, can you really imagine the Assassin's Creed Revelations of Metal Gear Solid? Like, this game that is so same engine, just packing as much shit into it as they can and calling that progress, where Metal Gear Solid has never really been about that. It changes with each installment.
I can agree to a certain extent.
Look at, like, Revelations, like, oh my god, we've got now what do we do? We've got combos, we've got smoke bombs, and we've got hidden pistols. It's like, oh well, now we have hook blades, we have like 300 different kinds of bombs, and we have traps, and we have, I can't even remember because I cared so little playing that game. And even though like the maps were really beautifully designed and all that kind of stuff, and there was some cool stuff going on in the plot, it was just so much moreness, so much. Let's do Assassin's Creed 2, but more. I can't see someone like Kojima doing that, but I guess you've successfully painted a dark picture for the future of the franchise, because that's exactly what they will do. Because now they've got an engine that is pretty much, it's incredible for its first outing, and a game design that's excellent for its first outing, and now all I need to do is add more features and come up with a big list of features that people want and get someone to write a plot that Metal Gear Solid fans will be happy with, instead of something that'll piss them off or provoke them, and then you've got a cash cow.
Quite possibly, and I mean with probably Kojima not at the helm anymore, there's like a very good chance that he's done at Konami. Like, that probably could very well happen with the plot, but I feel like Metal Gear Solid 2 to 3 added a lot of features, because I mean, like Metal Gear Solid 2, like the big thing that they were debuting with that, or one of the big things they were debuting with that, was the interactive environments. Like, you could go behind the bar and shoot bottles and stuff, and at the time that was like big thing, like, oh my god, I can interact with stuff on the shelf. But then
but it wasn't just there for the hell of it. Like,
oh no,
Metal Gear Solid 2 was very much about your environment, and most of the stealth is, well, I guess people would argue about that, but shooting out lights, shooting steam in front of guards when you get caught, things like that. It's still part of the stealth. It's like an industrial interactive stealth.
Definitely, and I 100% agree with you on that, but I felt like a lot of the stuff they added in 3 didn't feel like, unnecessarily clutter or anything. Like, I loved the healing, I loved the eating, I loved the, like your stamina bar and all that, so I don't necessarily think that, like, if they did build off Phantom Pain, like, it necessarily would be, like, all clutter with bullcrap, like the smoke bombs and Revelations, which I never once used, by the way.
Yeah. The difference is, though, it wasn't added. I think it's a little incorrect to say that stuff was added for Metal Gear Solid 3, because the game was rebuilt around that stuff. It wasn't Metal Gear Solid 2 plus survival, plus healing, plus eating. It was a very different game where those things were also part of your environment, and the environment was changed to accommodate those things. It's not like, I don't know, were there steam pipes in Metal Gear Solid 3? Maybe an irrelevant question. Were there lockers? Yes. Did you use them? No. So it was it was built around, it's kind of like a sideways step, I think, even though there was more to it. I'll give you that. See, Phantom Pain didn't have that, because it wasn't necessary. And people say, oh, they stripped away features and they changed things. Like, of course they do. It changes every time. It doesn't just add new shit on. Like, Metal Gear Solid 4 didn't add on to survival. It took a different step and went to whatever it was doing. Battlefield stealth and psyche and things like that.
That's true, and I did miss like some of the. I missed some stuff from Metal Gear Solid 4. Actually, like I'm not going to be one to say by any means like, oh my god, they stripped features out of it. Like, no, because it's a completely different scenario. It's I mean, you're outdoors in Metal Gear Solid 4, but it's open world, so I mean, like, you don't need a lot of the stuff that you did in previous games.
Yeah, and you've got an army behind you, so as much as I miss a pat down, I never really used it, and you'd use it even less in Phantom Pain, except for like a subsistence mission. So there's a lot of things that just don't really have a place when you've got your whole army sitting at home waiting to send you whatever it is that you feel like. I do see where you're coming from, but I think, just to retouch on that point, it's been done well because Hideo Kojima's been doing this stuff. So when he's gone, it's a company going making Metal Gear Solid, and hey, who knows? I could be wrong, and maybe they'll just hire someone with their own vision, and everything will be fine. But the question goes: when you're designing a game by committee, are those decisions going to continue to be made as well as they have been previously? And history says no.
I can get on board with that, like, for sure. And we are starting to somewhat run out of time here. We're obviously not going to get to the ending, which could almost be an entire episode in its own. There was some stuff I wanted to quickly touch on before we do run out of time. I believe it was Ruff in the chat said that he wanted more darkness and taboo kind of stuff, which goes back to our original topic of the marketing.
Yeah. I can't really argue with that. It definitely wasn't as dark and gritty as it was painted out to be. And yes, I guess it wasn't as dark as Ground Zeroes, as Salad was saying. But it's a tough one. I mean, I think there's a lot of really mature and kind of like just existentially dark stuff going on in the game, but it's all between the lines. It's all in the way the characters react. I mean, we could also do an entire episode on Huey just about. I think when you look across, say, Huey, Eli, Skullface, Cars, and the way these characters respond or refuse to respond and refuse to change, it's done very naturally, so that when they're your friends or when they're in front of you, it doesn't seem so bad, and then suddenly when Huey does all this stuff, you instantly hate him. Like, that's your gut reaction. But when you actually stop and look at the real life people who would go through with this kind of thing, it does get really dark. But that's probably a topic for another day. But no, in terms of general tone, yeah, it wasn't all about kicking puppies and shooting children like everybody really was craving to get off on. That never came up.
And that was one of the things I was disappointed about. I mean, because I think there's a line between what Kojima has done in the past to mislead people about, what the game is about. And I mean, that's all well and fine, but to come out and say, like, oh, this game is going to break taboos, and oh my god, it's going to be like so dark and offensive, and then Ground Zeroes teased us with that, with the tapes and stuff. I think that, for me personally, like, I wouldn't necessarily say crosses a line, but I do think it's almost like unfair to hype up just how dark it's going to be. And then, I mean, like, the moment that, like, it kind of broke it for me, where I was like, well, this clearly isn't going to happen, is after all these things that Huey's done, and on the back of the game case it says all for revenge, and even though we didn't get the game that we thought we were going to get, I think revenge still was like a main focus on it, because I mean it's what controlled Mantis. It was like the corrupting forces of revenge, and the Skullface's motivations. The moment for me that I kind of like was like, oh, well, okay then, was you brought up Huey. He does all these things, and Venom Snake was like, okay, well, we'll send him packing with a lunch in his own little boat, and then he'll just go off and be fine.
Well, I guess I can see your point there, but that's also more relevant to us as an audience who knows the future, because, and they're saying, his past is going to catch up on him one day, and then we know exactly what happens, and it does. I think that's kind of an important part of what, I guess my response to what you were saying earlier as well. We were told all the stuff that didn't really happen, but I think all that stuff that we were told, I think there's an argument to be made. I don't know if I can't say that this is the case, but I think a lot of that stuff is about how we respond. Again, it's about expectations and how we respond to these things when we're expecting something. I don't really want to lose that on that, because we'll be here for another hour, so it might be a good topic to get into later. But in a nutshell, a lot of, especially Chapter 2, a lot of this game, and I mean, this is backed up, even I just noticed the other day, I was looking through the soundtrack, and like one of the common themes through all of the licensed music is a lot of these songs at some level are about sitting around and waiting for something to change. Something's coming, something's about to happen, sitting around, repetitively doing nothing, wondering when everything is going to get better. So yeah, I think expectation itself is an interesting kind of idea that the game doesn't really talk about. It just brings up or creates in the audience, even though it doesn't really pop up in the narrative that much. It's the one uniting thing of Huey, of Cars, of Eli, of Skullface. And then it kind of flips the script a little bit for Venom. But that's probably for another day.
I would say so, too. Before we go, you can just, like, even just a yes or no, like, do you think, or a two-parter question, Do you think
Sure.
that revenge was still a central theme of the game, and do you think that it was explored properly, or at least enough?
I thought it was dealt to in a pretty straightforward manner. You can pretty much sum the whole revenge theme up with cars, and there's like one conversation by some guards who go, "Wow, man, that Master Miller sure has turned into an asshole ever since he killed Skullface. He thought he was getting what he wanted, but he doesn't feel any better, and now he's taking it out on us." Like, it pretty much sums up the whole thing in some little exchange by some guards. So I think the revenge thing is a stepping stone into some of the bigger ideas. It's an example.
And I thought so too, but like that conversation I absolutely hated because it felt like I was being spoon-fed once like there's no quenching your thirst for revenge. Once you get what you need, then like you'll still be a dick. Because I mean,
Right,
like,
so
I would
to me,
rather
that's
have
it.
it be shown to me.
Well, I think it is, but yeah, we'll get back to it. I think by bringing that idea up, they're trying to get you to look at it to say, well, clearly this isn't the whole point of the thing. Obviously, it's not the whole point of the thing because we're spelling it out for you in a little golden book and a little side conversation. So that's a really obvious, easily accessible kind of little thematic note. And I think that is asking the audience to start looking a bit broader at where else do these ideas pop up. Blah 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 blah.
I can get on board with that for sure.
So yeah,
I
the
think,
revenge thing is.
Sorry, go on.
I was just gonna say, so the revenge thing, as like some super overarching thematic thing. No, it's not done well, but it wasn't meant to be done well. It's kind of like an entry point.
See, that's what I kind of wonder about too, because I mean, like, while we didn't get the game that we necessarily were led to believe, and like I still think that revenge was meant to be like one of the central themes. I think they pulled it off well with Kaz. Like I thought he did a really good job of showing his character just being stuck in that, like, oh, we have to get them, blah, and then like he still gets, and he's like, oh, still, blah. Like I thought that was really cool as far as characters go, but like I just didn't get enough of it for me personally, I guess.
So you could say that you weren't satisfied by the revenge. It left you unfulfilled.
Just for the revenge, I was fulfilled by the overall story of the game, and actually, to be completely honest, and we can go into this another day too. Like, I wasn't completely fulfilled by the story. I'm not saying it wasn't a good story. I love Phantom Pain. It's my least favorite Metal Gear Solid story, but at the same time, it's like saying that like this diamond is like the least sparkly of my diamond collection.
I know what you mean, but my point there was like you're talking about wanting to be shown, the point about revenge, and how it's unfulfilling, and the revenge story was unfulfilling.
Correct.
Technically, we got it. Technically, Big Boss got his revenge, but even that's not really what we wanted. We wanted Big Boss to go and do all the stuff when it wasn't even him. We wanted a lot, and we technically accomplished it, and the reality of it was not what we were being conditioned to crave. So I think that's what I say. It's a starting point into a lot of what the game is talking about, especially in terms of who Big Boss is as a character, what brings him to this point where he really is a really fucked up person, and what that means for the concept of out of heaven, blah, 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 blah. But I think we'll call it there, and come back to it next time. So it gives us
Sounds
something
good to me.
start.
Cool. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks to everyone who joined us in the chat, and I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. I know I did.
Yeah, sorry to the guys in the chat. There's a lot of stuff I would have liked to respond to, but if we're in the middle of something, then they kind of just rather keep talking. So thanks for your input. It does help with us going in random directions, so that was cool. And yes, we will pick up where we left off in around about a week's time.
Sounds good to me. Thanks again, man.
Thanks, mate. Catch you next time.
See ya.